What's a movie that teaches a really bad lesson? Nuts and Berries said. Love story. Love means never having to say you're sorry. What the hell were they thinking? Killflick said. Any movie in the 90s with a stepdad. They are always the antagonist and gave a horrible expectation for separated households. Darthzilla2 said. I had seen this trope so many times growing up that I was utterly surprised when Ant-Man did the exact opposite. Paul Rudd's character gets out of prison and never tries to win back his ex-wife, who has moved on with a new guy. The new guy isn't an asshole or a minor antagonist. The movie never really pits Paul Rudd and the new guy against each other. They both work together to keep Rudd's daughter safe from the bad guys. The movie ends with the mom, daughter, new partner and Paul Rudd all enjoying a nice family meal together. It was a great representation of a blended family. Halks Quixotic said. Isn't there a gag at the end where the ex hugs Paul Rudd for a little while and then the new husband pulls her off him, so he can hug him? Great stuff. Ruiner 8850 said. Not exactly a stepdad, but Pierce Brosnan's character in Mrs. Doubtfire is actually a pretty good dude but is treated as the villain for most of the movie. In reality, Robin Williams' character was the asshole. Valentino42 said. What's really interesting to me is that it's based on a book by John Grisham. Yes, that Grisham. This book, Skipping Christmas, only preceded the movie by a few years and the book itself wasn't regarded very well. So I don't know who decided it would make a good movie. They didn't even try to capitalize on Grisham's name recognition either. Lentra 888 said. 50 Shades of Grey. It's a movie about a guy who was abused, perpetuating the cycle of abuse with the thin veneer of it's okay because he's rich and this is how BDSM works. The fuck it does. Almost all the characters are all shitty people. Period. Mr. Unavailable said. There was a Reddit thread where BDSM people complained how people wanted to try it because they liked the movie book. One couple got a whip but went to ER when the wife whipped her husband in the back so hard that it left a huge gash. People equate pain to pleasure and humiliation to live, but BDSM requires a lot of setup and has more work done to make it work. Zenbrinia said. Exactly, this is a terrible representation of BDSM. He uses his looks and money to coerce a 21-year-old girl into a lifestyle that he knows she's not comfortable with, and after a particularly rough scene which left her crying, he just fucking leaves. Aftercare is absolutely essential in BDSM, but he doesn't care. That's not a dom, that's an abuser. How Funny said. Grace. You date a high school asshole, and his equally loser, no good friends treat you like shit. What do you do? Oh, that's right, you become hopelessly devoted to him, and no matter how shitty he treats you, you come back to him time after time. After the shit with Cha-Cha, Sandy should have known that he was no good for her and that her friends, I'm looking at you, Frenchie, are useless cunts and not true friends. I mean, it was one summer, Sandy. How hung was he that you kept coming back? Edit, guys. Danny is human, he has a bad side and a good side. Don't we all? He can become a better person, and in the end we all saw him wearing the cheer coat, or whatever that was, that signified his new, better self. My problem is with Sandy for being weak. You don't go back to a guy who treats you like that hoping he would change. He needs to prove himself before you begin to think about going back. You don't throw your experience out the window just because a guy says the few words you want to hear, wears a new jacket, and sings a duet with you. Baby, you are scalding hot with that black thing you call pants. He would have said anything. Throwing aside your experience, that's the opposite of wisdom. Without the songs, it's a dark story about a girl who's trying to fit in and everybody loves her only once there's a cigarette to bum. Sandys of the world, you deserve better. Don't believe words, believe deeds. Edit Wu said. A lot of people say Grease, but it's not what many think it is on a surface level. Danny was being himself in the beginning of the film with Sandy, and only put on the greaser persona at school with his friends. He made a lot of effort joining sports and partially rejecting the greaser lifestyle to embrace more of who he really is and to get to who he wants. Sandy's Sandra Dee persona was the perfect girl her family expected her to be, and the person she always thought she needed to be. She eventually let go of that and embraced more fun in order to be truer to herself and not live such a sterile lifestyle. In the end, it was about the two of them letting go of their individual pressures and just having fun being themselves. Atomic Punk said, "Revenge of the Nerds can't even claim it's satirical. The nerds are just as bad, if not worse, than the jocks. Yes, the jocks started it by running a few pigs through their party. What the nerds do is far worse, but really only at the expense of the easier targets, their women. Other than the humility of losing in what is effectively a few competitions they cheat at, along with some tiger's bomb in their jock straps, the lambdas don't really get revenge on the jocks, they take it out on their women. First they spy on them in the nude. Then they distribute the nude photos to the school. Finally Lewis rapes Betty Childs. All because like 4 girlfriends helped the jocks with the pigs? And the idea that it's okay because Lewis is good in bed is beyond disturbing. She doesn't just accept it, she decides she's in love with a nerd. That movie was written by some serious incels." Banana Graham said, "Not a movie, but the kids show Kiyu is fucking terrible. It's made for kids at the age where they copy everything they see, and the main little fucker in the show cries and wins the whole time, so kids who watch it become insufferable. Bad lesson for kids, good lesson for parents who will learn about modeling." Pilliner said, "It was created in response to Peppa Pig, because the children are obnoxious and the dad is incompetent. So Bluey's creators set out to make the kids realistic, with lessons to learn and a good spin on things, and to make the dad a useful, engaging member of the family. As a stay-at-home dad of 3 years, that show meant the world to me." Fig Baby 2020 said, "Counterpoint, I also watched it recently for the first time, and I think the movie means for us to understand her actions aren't acceptable from the beginning. George acts as the moral compass by frequently asking her if she's even really in love with him or if she's just acting out of jealousy, pointing out that he already rejected her, etc. She def acts terrible, but the movie doesn't endorse her actions. The only way the movie really aged badly, that I noticed, is with the gay best friend trope, and even then it wasn't the worst example I've personally seen in movies TV. Perhaps not a perfect movie, but still a pretty fun one, and not one I think gives off especially bad messaging. Then again, just my opinion." Ms. 000 said, "The Sex and the City movie, and series. Big leaves carry time and time again over the years. This teaches that if you stick around your toxic relationship, the man might finally change and commit to you, even after 10 years. With that said, I love SATC. Watching it in my 20s I saw Carrie finally get her man. Watching it in my 30s I cringe and just wish Carrie would have stayed with Aiden." Deadpan Words said, "The whole Twilight series. Edward and Jacob are both controlling pricks at best, and Bella is too spineless to put them in their place. My love dumped me, so I'm going to engage in reckless behavior. My love is dead, so I'm going to commit suicide by cop. My love is in a relationship with someone else, so I'm going to try to force myself on her so she will change her mind." If you want some professional input about how bad the relationships are in Twilight, check out Cinema Therapy on YouTube. Space Entity said, "It's also pedophilia. Jacob falls in love with a newborn baby, Bella's baby by the way, and Edward is around 100 years old when he meets Bella, who is a teenager. Plus Bella cannot understand that no means no when Edward says he doesn't want to have sex. She even pressures him into marrying her so they can have sex. He then leaves bruises all over her and says he's sorry but it's his super strength. That's a great lesson to teach young teens, he just couldn't control himself. Also, Edward sneaks into Bella's house and watches her sleep for months, even before they'd had a full conversation. Her reaction is thinking that it's sweet. And Jacob is awful and consistently pressures Bella and tries to get her to go to him because he hates Edward. Say what you will about a lot of the hate on Twilight being because it's something a lot of teen girls like, and that is partially true, but there is so much else wrong with it." Nick 2711 said, "You know, there's some potential for a great film in there. It was just never realized. And everyone likes to vilify Chris Pratt's character, and whilst he did an absolutely abhorrent thing, he's only human. The conflicting drive for survival and crippling loneliness is only compounded by the sheer boredom and monotony he would experience. An absolute breakdown of his mental state and the relief and desperation for approval when she wakes up. This movie could have been an interesting look into the loss of a man's sanity through sheer loneliness and the understanding that his entire life will be spent floating through the void of space. It would then move into an exploration of is he a bad guy? Or just a poor, desperate man that made a horrible decision? Fuck, maybe even go down the path that he hates himself for what he did. He essentially took a life. How does he deal with that after the fact? Apex in the Rough said. Wonder Woman 1984. The link is to an in-depth video essay called How to Harm Your Audience, and part 2 covers the toxic moral, as the video calls it, better than I can. Edit. Yeah, the whole possessed and raped a guy story. What gets under my skin is that if the genders were flipped, that movie would have been blasted to oblivion instead of promoted with admittedly awesome trailer music. CTTC Jim said. 40 days, and 40 nights. It's about a girl who's a total slut but she decides to challenge herself not to have sex for 40 days. She's doing fine until her friend makes a website about it and a being pool starts. Suddenly everyone is trying to get her in bed. Meanwhile she meets this really great guy who teaches her that love doesn't have to involve sex. You can have a great time and even be intimate without fucking. Still, she's so horny, you guys. At the end of the 40 days, she literally handcuffs herself to a bed to keep from letting anyone fuck her. The pool is up to huge amounts of money now. Then her ex-boyfriend walks in. He sees her tied up, so he rapes her. He claims the prize money and literally rides off into the sunset. The slutty girl is upset because her awesome new boyfriend might not accept her now that she cheated on him by being raped, but it turns out he's okay with it. Oh wait, oops, I accidentally reversed the genders of all those characters. D3Th0Zi said. Beauty and the Beast, the Disney movie, definitely gets a lot of flack for that one. But, in the original story the Beast asks Beauty if she wants to live with him, which she agrees to because she feels like she owes it to him after the Beast let her father stay the night in his castle and allowed him to eat food, and take a rose as a gift for her. The Beast is clear that he likes Beauty, and asks her regularly to marry him, but Beauty refuses because the Beast is hideous. In the original story she only changes her mind when she asked to visit her father and the Beast let her go as long as she promised to return. But, when she got home and told her stepsisters about how great the Beast was treating her, great food and clothing, they insist every day that Beauty stay, prolonging her visit, because they were jealous and want the Beast to hate Beauty for not coming back. Unknown to Beauty, the Beast fell into depression and stopped eating while waiting for her to return. When she did come back, she found that he was starving to death and she realized that he truly did love her and that she did like him after all. I find that original story much better than the Disney movie, since there was no pressure from the Beast and it feels like he pursued her for much longer rather than forcing a romance between them due to living in one place. Squidman Mal said. Twilight is the story of a teenager afraid of growing old using an emotionally stunted teenage immortal. Vampires cannot age physically or mentally from when they are turned. An entire plot point is made that vampire children are not allowed because of that, as a ticket to her own immortality, while also pressuring him for sex when he isn't comfortable due to older age morals. When said boyfriend tries to leave for her own safety, she uses the werewolf who's always loved her as an emotional crutch. Later, genetic fuckery causing him to have his thoughts and mind rewritten against his will to be whatever a newborn child will ever want, as his free will and own love and attractions are forever stolen from him. But it's okay cause now the love triangle is solved. Or, as others oversimplify while giving the honestly shitty character Bella a free pass, and discounting Meyer's absolutely disturbing implications for the men within printing. A story of a vampire and werewolf pedo. Vitruvian Dude said. The different times were the 1940s, not the actual time of Annie Oakley. That's what makes it so frustrating. In real life, Frank knew he was not quite as talented as a marksman or showman, so he happily played second fiddle. Annie Oakley was a fascinating woman. She came from a poor and possibly abusive background, but reinvented herself thoroughly as an extraordinarily confident performer. Some of her political positions could have us scratching our heads. She was an anti-suffragette, but called for women to serve in military combat roles well before it was considered proper. 827 said. I watched Pleasantville, 1998, and quite liked it in general, but Reese Witherspoon's character's inside at the end is pretty yikes. Basically, She's supposed to be the 1990s slutty high school girl throughout the movie, but during the film she learns to enjoy reading and decides to go to college at the end. When she leaves, she basically says, "I decided to stop being slutty and be a smart girl, so I'm going to college and giving all that up." Despite sexual liberation being a major theme in the movie and being a catalyst for change for a number of characters, I honestly think they just kind of fumbled the message a bit with her. None of the sex she has is super shameful, dangerous or degrading for her, and her few encounters are all enthusiastic and consensual and actually initiated by her. Which contrasts with giving up something you feel bad about doing and is self-destructive. The Lucky Frog said, "Right, the whole third act of the movie is him doing a 180 on his previous values, realizing individuals are important, for example Bob, realizing he doesn't have the right to try to forcibly reorder society, and realizing psycho-uber-masculinity is not an ideal human state. The movie can have several themes at once. Lots of aspects of modern life are shallow and dehumanizing, but that doesn't mean you become some extremist." The scene that I think is kind of awkward is the one with the gas station clerk, because while the narrator is disgusted with Tyler's violence, it implies Tyler is a little bit right and that he may have given the guy some perspective, which is not how PTSD works at all. But I know the writers weren't suggesting you run around threatening people, so I can get past it. Smaller Cathedrals said, "Whiplash. Though most sane people agree that this kind of teaching is utterly insane, I still come across people who find the weirdest excuses to justify the conductor's methods. I mean, he's destroying his students mentally and borderline physically, that is throwing chairs, slapping them in the face, and then you'll hear people say, well, in the end it worked out. The show was a success. Holy moly. First off, the end doesn't always justify the means. And secondly, the drummer didn't succeed because of the conductor, but rather despite." Code Monkey 552 said, "The Lion King teaches that it's okay to move beyond your life's mistakes, only if those mistakes were fabricated and not really your fault. Basically, Simba lives his life under the impression that he indirectly killed his father. But the audience knows it was actually Scar. Simba spends the movie trying to learn how to move on from things done in the past, but it's a mistake he never made in the first place. At the end of the movie, Scar reveals to the lionesses that Simba killed Mufasa. And for a short moment, the lionesses actually turn on Simba, implying that the past had not actually been put behind him. Then, of course, Scar is revealed as the actual culprit and all is well. This implies that Simba is only a good guy because he didn't actually do the thing. The message would make more sense if Simba actually was responsible for Mufasa's death, but through time he and the other lions were able to accept that and move on." Try66 said, "The overall message in the Ant-Man movies is bad. Scott is supposed to be chosen for thieving skills, but he basically fails at that and ends up fighting to escape nearly every time, or gets arrested. Worse, he's a parent, which means he's always risking his chance to see his daughter grow up. It's not like the suit only works for him. It's not like he's a particularly amazing fighter. And it's not like lives are always at stake. Why risk missing your chance to be a dad, just to break the law and fight alongside Captain America? Even if you're a fan of a celebrity, neglecting your responsibility as a parent and committing treason for that celebrity is insane. The closest thing to a lesson is when he actually does miss his daughter grow up between Infinity War and Endgame, but ironically that was the one time it wasn't his fault." Professional Retard 7 said, "Saw and Don't Breathe. I'll explain why for both reasons. Saw, Kramer kills people but claims he isn't a killer. BC, he gives people a chance to escape. Like yeah asshole by making them go through hell. Especially since a lot of the time it's over small things like someone who suffered from drug addiction or a guy who got his friend killed in a drunken accident. Don't Breathe, old man loses his daughter to a car crash and decides it's appropriate to rape the woman who killed his daughter and make a new one with her. Then claims he isn't a rapist." The Happy Tuna said, "Ready Player One. It spreads the message that the only important part of being a fan is memorizing trivia, and also praises the Mick for dating the FMC despite the fact she's ugly, gorgeous with a barely visible birthmark. Despite saying that virtual relationships are important too, they close the video game world to Thursday so people can experience the real world. The mastermind, who regrets wasting his life online, makes a scavenger hunt which he puts online, ensuring hundreds of thousands of others will also waste their lives online. God, I hate this movie. Nanimus said. The Lorax, he chops down a whole forest but keeps the seed for years without planting it because he waited around for someone to care? How about himself? He seemed to care. We even saw him water a tree at the end of the movie, so he has no excuse. They tried to make the morale about people needing to care about the environment, but for some reason it has to be the next generation because those who can actually do something about it is just gonna wait around while holding on to the power to change it. Just put the seed in the ground, old man. Also teaching kids that you can totally date an older woman, you just have to give her something she really wants. Totally not creepy at all. They would never have the guts to pull it off with reversed genders. Saint Raimi said. Raymond. Throughout the whole movie, Raymond is used and abused by Tom Cruise's character, and literally kidnapped and used as blackmail against the home that housed Raymond. Furthermore, at the end of the movie, Tom Cruise nudges Raymond along to tell the courts that he should stay with him, despite literally the dick creating a situation in which Raymond nearly burnt down the house. I mean, look at the synopsis. Charlie, a selfish automobile dealer, kidnaps his autistic brother Raymond and tries to manipulate him into giving up his inheritance from their late father. Isn't that the most fucked up movie concept you've ever read? This movie is presented in a fun-loving, adventurous kind of way, but if you step back and really think about the movie, it's crazy. I guess the lesson of the movie is family, but it does a horrible job at portraying how one should treat family. The lesson to me looks like use your autistic brother as blackmail and abuse him. Nacho 69420 said. Toy Story 3. I know, great movie and I genuinely love it, but there's a small message that makes no sense and serves as a really bad lesson for children especially. The villain of the film, Lotso, tries to get rid of Woody and the gang the whole movie and keeps them prisoner. But when they're all in danger at the end of the movie, the gang decides to forgive Lotso and save him. I thought when I saw it that, oh, that's a nice little message showing children the value of forgiveness. Cool. Only 2 scenes later, Lotso has the opportunity to save them, but he betrays them for no reason. He's a sympathetic character and it would have made sense for him to change his ways, but instead the movie opts to tell children never forgive anyone or they will stab you in the fucking back. I like to think one of the writers got cheated on or something. Mustard Whale said. I watched Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. It was a good movie. I really liked Bob's acting. However, I noticed a really disturbing statement about masculinity in it. Almost all the men in that film were shaming Hutch for not resorting to violence because of a home invasion. Instead, they all jested that if they were in his place they would have been happy to practice self-defense. That really irked me. Violence should never be praised. Even if used in self-defense, you can be happy someone successfully defended themselves, but these people really just wanted an excuse to hurt people. Even towards the end, Hutch was giddy that he was able to hurt people. It is just a movie, an action movie at that, but I still think writers should be conscious of what they are trying to make cool and what we define as masculinity.